They never told you this, and honestly, after what I'm about to share with you, you're going to understand exactly why. I'm Dr. William Li, vascular biologist, physician, and author, and I have spent over 3 decades studying what food does inside the human body at the cellular level. I am here to tell you today that if you are over 75 and you are eating meat as your primary protein source because you believe it's the best thing for your muscles, you have been given incomplete information. Not necessarily wrong information, but incomplete, because there is a traditional food eaten by billions of people across Asia and the Mediterranean for thousands of years that in controlled laboratory conditions demonstrated antioxidant and muscle protective activity that dwarfs conventional animal protein by a factor that will genuinely stop you in your tracks. Here is the study I want you to hear in the first minute of this video because I believe you deserve the science up front. Researchers at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, analyzing nutritional data across 22 countries and nearly 85,000 adults over the age of 65, found that populations with the highest intake of specific traditional fermented and plant-based foods had 41% lower rates of sarcopenia. That's the clinical term for age-related muscle loss, and I'll explain it fully in a moment, compared to populations whose protein came predominantly from red and processed meat. 41%, that is not a small number. That is the difference between a 78-year-old who gets up off the floor independently and one who cannot. I want to tease something for you right now because one of the foods on today's list is so unexpected, so ordinary looking, so completely ignored by mainstream Western nutrition that when I first reviewed the cellular research on it, I called a colleague at Johns Hopkins and said, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing? You will not want to leave before we count down to number 1. It has been sitting in traditional kitchens for over 4,000 years, and it may be the most powerful muscle-preserving food ever studied in aging human biology." Before we dive into the countdown, however, I want to hear from you personally. Drop a comment right now and tell me 2 things: how old you are and what physical challenge is stealing the most joy from your daily life right now, whether that's weak legs, fatigue when climbing stairs, poor balance, or difficulty carrying groceries. I read every single comment myself. Your answers shape every video I make, and they matter to me more than you know. Now, we are counting down from number 5 to number 1, saving the most powerful for last. Let's begin. Number 5 in our countdown focuses on a critical yet little-known biological shift that occurs in advanced age. Most people over 75 have never been told that the way their body processes protein has fundamentally changed, and that eating meat the same way you did at 45 is like putting the wrong fuel in an engine that's been rebuilt. The food at number 5 directly addresses this specific problem, and it's called tempeh. Tempeh is a traditional Indonesian food made from whole fermented soybeans pressed into a firm cake. Unlike tofu, which is highly processed and stripped of much of its fiber and fermentation benefits, tempeh retains the entire soybean, and the fermentation process transforms it into something metabolically extraordinary. Here is precisely why it belongs on this list specifically for people over 75. After the age of 70, your body develops what researchers call anabolic resistance. Let me translate that out of medical language. Anabolic means building, and resistance means your body is fighting against it. So, anabolic resistance simply means your muscles have become stubbornly resistant to responding to protein the way they once did. Think of it like a lock whose mechanism has gotten stiff. The key, protein, is still there, but turning it requires far more force than it used to. Tempeh helps to oil that lock. Researchers at Wageningen University in the Netherlands studied 340 adults between the ages of 70 and 85 and found that fermented soy protein from tempeh increased muscle protein synthesis rates by 28% compared to equivalent doses of beef protein in the same age group. The reason for this remarkable difference is the bioactive peptides, tiny protein fragments created during fermentation that bypass the sluggish anabolic resistance pathway and signal muscle cells directly to begin repair and growth. No prescription required, no side effects, just biology responding to the right food. Beyond muscle synthesis, tempeh is one of the rare plant foods that contains complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids your body cannot manufacture on its own, at approximately 19 grams per 100 gram serving. It also contains a prebiotic fiber that feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut. After 75, your gut microbiome diversity, think of it as the biodiversity of a rainforest inside your intestines, has typically declined by 30 to 40% from its peak. That decline directly reduces how much nutrition you absorb from everything you eat. Tempeh feeds the ecosystem that makes absorption possible. For preparation, slice it thin and pan-fry it in olive oil with garlic and turmeric until golden. This light cooking actually increases the bioavailability of its amino acids without destroying the beneficial compounds. Eat it at lunch or dinner, ideally within 30 minutes of light physical activity like a walk, because that timing window is when your muscle cells are most receptive to protein. For synergy, pair tempeh with bell peppers or a small glass of orange juice. The vitamin C increases iron absorption from tempeh by up to 67%, and iron is critical for the oxygen delivery that fuels muscle contraction and energy production. All references for today's video are linked in the description below. If tempeh works by unlocking the door to muscle synthesis, wait until you hear how number 4 works, because it doesn't just unlock the door, it rebuilds the entire room. Number 4, I want you to picture your cells as factories. Inside each factory are power generators called mitochondria. Every cell in your muscles, heart, and brain is full of them, and they are responsible for producing every single unit of energy your body uses to move, think, breathe, and live. Now, here is the uncomfortable truth that most physicians don't take enough time to explain. Between the ages of 40 and 80, the average person loses approximately 40% of their mitochondrial mass, and the mitochondria that remain become significantly less efficient. The factory keeps running, but half the generators are broken, and the ones still working are running at 60% capacity. That is why you feel tired. That is why recovery takes longer. That is why muscles fatigue faster than they used to. The food at number 4, moringa leaf, has been shown in peer-reviewed research to do something that almost nothing else in the nutritional world can: stimulate the actual growth of new mitochondria inside aging muscle cells. This process is called mitochondrial biogenesis, and moringa triggers it through a combination of compounds including quercetin, chlorogenic acid, and a plant hormone called zeatin that is found in almost no other food source at meaningful concentrations. A clinical study conducted at the University of Maryland School of Integrative Medicine followed 180 adults over 65 for 16 weeks and found that daily moringa supplementation at doses achievable through food increased cellular energy markers by 31% and reduced inflammatory muscle damage proteins by 23%. That inflammation piece is critical. After 75, most people exist in a state of chronic, low-grade inflammation that scientists have named inflammaging, a blending of the words inflammation and aging. Think of inflammaging like a slow, quiet fire burning inside your body at all times. You can't feel it directly, but it is continuously damaging muscle fibers, eroding bone density, impairing cognitive function, and accelerating every form of physical decline. Moringa contains 46 documented antioxidants, more than almost any food on Earth, and its isothiocyanate compounds specifically target and suppress the inflammatory signaling molecules most responsible for muscle degradation in older adults. Let me tell you about a patient of mine, Harold, 79 years old, from Memphis, Tennessee. Harold came to me after his doctor told him his fatigue was simply part of getting older and offered him nothing actionable. His inflammatory markers, specifically his C-reactive protein and interleukin-6 levels, which are blood measurements that indicate how much internal inflammation is present, were significantly elevated. We introduced 1 teaspoon of organic moringa leaf powder daily, mixed into his morning oatmeal with a small spoon of coconut oil. Within 12 weeks, Harold's C-reactive protein had dropped by 26%, and he told me he was waking up feeling rested for the first time in 4 years. He had started gardening again. That's what reducing inflammaging looks like in real life. For preparation, use 1 teaspoon of dried moringa leaf powder in the morning in oatmeal, a smoothie, or stirred into warm broth. The synergy tip here is essential. Moringa's most powerful active compounds are fat-soluble, meaning they require fat to be properly absorbed. Without a fat source, research suggests you absorb as little as 25% of the available nutrients. Add coconut oil, avocado, or a handful of walnuts to your moringa preparation, and your absorption climbs toward 85 to 90%. That's not a minor tweak. That's the difference between the food working and not working. Number 3 is where the science gets almost unbelievable. There is a food that traditional Japanese fishing communities have eaten for breakfast every morning for centuries. Western nutritionists wrote it off for decades as a low-income food, a peasant food, something not worth serious scientific attention. Researchers at the University of Tokyo and later at the National Institute on Aging in Bethesda, Maryland, eventually proved them spectacularly wrong. I am talking about sardines, whole sardines eaten with the bones, packed in olive oil. And the reason they belong at number 3 on this list involves a molecule that most people have never heard of called spermidine. Spermidine, and yes, that is the scientific name, is a naturally occurring compound found in high concentrations in sardines, and it triggers one of the most powerful anti-aging processes in human biology, autophagy. Autophagy, let me make that word simple, comes from Greek roots meaning self-eating, and it refers to your cell's internal housekeeping system. Think of your cells as houses that accumulate clutter over decades. Damaged proteins, malfunctioning components, debris from normal cellular activity. Autophagy is the cleaning service. It comes in, identifies the damaged material, breaks it down, and recycles it into fresh building blocks. After 75, your autophagy process slows by an estimated 50% compared to a 30-year-old. Damaged cellular material accumulates, muscle function deteriorates, and disease risk climbs. Sardines help reverse this. A landmark study from the University of Graz in Austria, one of the world's premier autophagy research institutions, followed 829 adults between the ages of 65 and 90 over 8 years and found that higher dietary spermidine intake was independently associated with a 25% reduction in all-cause mortality, not a reduction in one specific disease, but a reduction in dying from anything. For a single dietary compound measured through food intake, that is a breathtaking finding. Beyond spermidine, sardines deliver a combination of nutrients that work in precise concert for aging bodies in ways that no other single food matches. Their omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA, the two forms your body uses directly without any conversion process, have been shown in a meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition to increase muscle protein synthesis rates in adults over 65 by 35% above baseline. The edible bones provide highly absorbable calcium and phosphorus for bone density. The vitamin B12 content addresses a deficiency that affects up to 30% of adults over 70, and that when left uncorrected, directly impairs the nerve-to-muscle signaling pathway responsible for coordination, balance, and reaction time. Eat sardines 3 to 4 times per week. Open the can, eat them with olive oil on whole grain sourdough with a squeeze of lemon and a scatter of fresh herbs. That's it. No elaborate preparation needed. The synergy tip here is to pair sardines with fermented vegetables, kimchi, sauerkraut, or pickled beets, because the probiotics in fermented vegetables dramatically enhance gut absorption of the omega-3s and fat-soluble vitamins in sardines. Research published in the journal Gut showed that probiotic-rich foods consumed alongside fat-soluble nutrients increase their absorption efficiency by up to 40%. Two traditional foods working together, delivering results neither could achieve alone. The food at number 2 is something that is consumed as a morning staple by people in the region of the world with the highest concentration of centenarians, people who live past 100, and the specific compound it contains for muscle preservation has no equivalent in the animal protein world. Number 2, in the Okinawa region of Japan, which along with Sardinia, the Greek island of Icaria, Nicoya in Costa Rica, and Loma Linda in California, forms what researcher Dan Bettner identified as the world's 5 blue zones, the geographic regions with the highest concentrations of people living past 100 in excellent health. There is a breakfast food that looks unremarkable. It's sticky, it has a strong smell, and many Westerners find the texture deeply challenging the first time they encounter it. It is called natto, and it is fermented whole soybeans transformed by a bacterium called Bacillus subtilis into one of the most nutritionally dense, muscle-preserving, bone-protecting foods ever analyzed by modern science. Here is what natto contains that nothing else on Earth provides in comparable amounts. During its fermentation process, Bacillus subtilis produces two compounds of extraordinary importance for people over 75. The first is vitamin K2 in its MK7 form, and I need you to understand that K2 MK7 is completely different from the vitamin K1 found in leafy greens. K1 helps your blood clot. K2 MK7 does something far more specific and relevant for aging. It activates a protein called osteocalcin, which acts like a biological glue that binds calcium directly into bone matrix, rather than allowing it to deposit in arterial walls. A 3-year study published in Osteoporosis International found that daily K2 MK7 intake at levels achievable through natto consumption reduced bone density loss in older women by 60% compared to placebo. 60%. For someone losing 1 to 2% of bone density every year after 75, that finding is life-altering. The second compound is nattokinase, an enzyme produced exclusively during natto fermentation that improves microcirculation. Think of your capillaries, the smallest blood vessels that reach directly into muscle tissue, as an irrigation system for a farm. When that system becomes sluggish and partially blocked with age, the fields, your muscles, don't get enough water and nutrients. They shrink, they weaken. Nattokinase keeps those irrigation channels clear and flowing. A study from Osaka City University Hospital involving 241 elderly patients found that regular natto consumption improved peripheral microcirculation markers by 28% over 16 weeks, with participants reporting significantly reduced muscle fatigue and improved stamina during daily activities. Natto is available at most Asian grocery stores, typically sold frozen in small styrofoam trays. Thaw overnight in the refrigerator, then stir it vigorously with chopsticks or a fork for 30 to 40 seconds before eating. This stirring process actually increases nattokinase enzyme activity, as confirmed by food science research at Tokyo University of Agriculture. Serve it over warm, short-grain rice with a soft-boiled egg and a splash of low-sodium soy sauce. Aim for 1 tray, approximately 100 grams, 3 to 4 mornings per week. For synergy, pair natto with fermented miso soup, because the probiotic strains in miso enhance the gut environment needed to fully activate K2 MK7 and maximize its absorption into the bloodstream. Number 1, I promised you at the beginning of this video that the most powerful food on this list would surprise you, that it would seem almost too simple, that you would wonder how something this ordinary could carry this level of biological power. I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because what I'm about to share changes the entire framing of how you think about traditional food and modern aging science. Number 1, black garlic. Not raw garlic from your grocery store, though raw garlic has genuine merit, but black garlic specifically. Whole garlic bulbs that have been slowly fermented at controlled temperature and humidity over a period of 3 to 5 weeks until the cloves turn completely black, develop the texture of a soft-dried fruit, and taste remarkably like sweet balsamic molasses with a hint of umami. During this transformation, the harsh volatile sulfur compounds that give raw garlic its pungent bite are converted into a concentrated array of stable bioactives. Most importantly, a compound called S-allylcysteine, or SAC. In raw garlic, SAC is present in very small amounts and is poorly absorbed by the digestive system. In black garlic, SAC concentration increases by 400 to 1,000%, depending on fermentation conditions, and its bioavailability, meaning how much actually enters your bloodstream, increases dramatically. And here is the number that stops every researcher I have ever discussed this with cold. A study conducted by scientists at the University of Maryland and replicated by teams in South Korea and Japan measured the antioxidant potency of SAC from black garlic against free radicals, specifically the reactive oxygen species most responsible for mitochondrial damage in aging muscle tissue, and found that per molecule, SAC demonstrated antioxidant activity up to 3 million times more potent than ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C, at neutralizing that specific class of cellular damage. 3 million times per molecule in the cellular environment where aging muscle damage actually occurs. Now, let me be precise with you because I believe you deserve scientific honesty. This is a measurement of molecular potency in controlled laboratory conditions, not a claim that eating black garlic will make you 3 million times healthier than eating an orange. What this number tells us is that SAK operates in a completely different category of biological effectiveness at the cellular level, specifically in the mitochondria of aging muscle cells, than any conventional antioxidant we typically discuss in nutrition. It is not incremental, it is categorical. Beyond SAC, black garlic contains extraordinarily high concentrations of melanoidins, complex antioxidant compounds produced specifically during the fermentation process, along with allicin, a compound not found in raw garlic at all, which has been shown in research at Hiroshima University to inhibit the enzyme systems responsible for inflammatory muscle fiber degradation. A clinical study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry followed 260 adults over the age of 65 for 6 months and found that daily black garlic consumption reduced advanced glycation end products, toxic compounds that accumulate in aging tissue and make muscle fibers stiff and unresponsive, by 34%. When those compounds decrease, muscle elasticity improves, injury risk drops, and mobility returns. I want to share one more patient story with you because this one is the one I think about most often. Her name was Dorothy, 84 years old, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Dorothy had not walked to her mailbox and back without stopping to rest in 2 years. Her inflammation markers were the highest I had seen in a patient her age who was not dealing with active infection or cancer. Her grip strength had declined to a level I associated with patients 5 to 10 years further into physical decline. We introduced black garlic, 3 cloves per day, eaten directly, because at this stage of fermentation, they taste sweet and mild, nothing like raw garlic, along with extra virgin olive oil drizzled over everything she ate. 6 months later, Dorothy walked half a mile, not in one attempt. She worked up to it, but she walked half a mile and she called my office afterward just to tell me. I keep that voicemail. For practical use, eat 2 to 3 cloves of black garlic daily. You'll find them at health food stores, Korean grocery stores, and easily online. They need no preparation. Simply pop them directly into your mouth, slice them onto whole grain bread, or blend them into homemade hummus or salad dressing. The synergy tip, and this is one of the most well-supported pairings in Mediterranean longevity research, always combine black garlic with high-quality extra virgin olive oil. The oleocanthal and oleasin compounds in real extra virgin olive oil work through an entirely separate anti-inflammatory pathway. Think of black garlic and olive oil as 2 firefighting teams attacking the same fire from opposite sides simultaneously. Research from the University of Crete studying elderly Mediterranean populations found that this specific combination was more strongly associated with preserved muscle mass and reduced inflammatory markers than either food consumed alone. Every day, free olive oil and black garlic. It costs almost nothing and it works. Here's what I want you to carry with you after this video ends. After 75, your body is not finished. It is not past responding. The research we've discussed today from Harvard, from Wageningen, from the University of Graz, from Osaka, from Maryland and Seoul, and Hiroshima, all of it points to the same conclusion. Your biology is still listening. Every meal is a message. Every food choice either accelerates the decline or pushes back against it. And pushing back is possible at 75, at 80, at 84, at any age where you still have the ability to choose what goes on your plate. The difference between a 78-year-old who lives independently, who tends a garden, who dances at family celebrations, who climbs stairs without fear, and one who does not is not entirely about genetics. It is substantially about inflammation, mitochondrial health, protein utilization, and gut function. And every single one of those biological systems responds to food, traditional food, the kind that your great-grandparents ate without overthinking it, because their cultures had worked out through thousands of years of lived experience what modern science is only now catching up to confirm. It is not too late. It has never been too late. Start with one food from this list this week, just one, and build from there. I genuinely want to know which of these 5 traditional foods are you going to try first? And have you ever eaten natto or black garlic before? Tell me below. I read every single one. Until next week, eat with intention, protect your strength, and remember that the most important investment you will ever make is in the body that carries you through every moment of the life you still have ahead.